What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of Every Day We're Covering, where we talk the world of sports, wagering, and having a good time. And we are dancing, folks, continuing to dance on in the NCAA tournament. You got a couple of happy fans here because our two teams are into the round of 16. Nebraska won a thriller over Vanderbilt, and Iowa State laid the hammer down on Kentucky in the second half here this afternoon on this Sunday as we record, and no better feeling than that, SJ. I mean, obviously, first time for your program, so it all feels great, but anytime you're able to, keep performing the way that you hope your team would is just a great feeling and fun to see.
Yeah, it's more of at least from along the lines of what you thought could happen, but at points of the season you run through your ups and downs. You're like, I don't know, maybe it was just got hot at a certain time, but when you can maximize, that's always the goal and seems to do so. And yeah, it's a fun time of year, especially when you have a little bit more of an interest besides just making some picks.
Yeah, for sure. It adds a little more fun into it and emotion into it, and I'm sure there's, of course, lots of folks out there that feel the same way with different teams that are still either alive or maybe their seasons just ended here a moment ago. As we're finishing up the round of 32 right now here to try to determine that Sweet 16. There's a couple games left yet this evening as we record. A couple games in progress as we record. One that's coming right down to the wire. Between Tennessee and Virginia, and of course that will be Iowa State's opponent in the next round in Chicago, so I'll be interested to see how this finishes up, but some good stuff out there. There's been some exciting games for sure. I mean, typically we're not let down. There has been times in the past, and I think last year was one of them, where the first round didn't really have a whole lot of I guess upsets or buzzer beater type moments. We got a few of those here this round, though, this year. There were some good finishes to games, some good shots and plays at the end of games to move on. We had, a little bit of a Cinderella mixed in there with High Point there in the first round, which was one of the fun ones. Some other teams in there too, but yeah, so far I think the tournament, as far as entertainment value is concerned for the average fan, has delivered pretty good.
Well, there's always going to be, there's a reason these teams are seated where they are, so you're going to get some those snoozers. But I do think there has been enough of the, unexpected going on and even just exciting, finishes down to the end. That's gonna kind of par for the course with this. So it's been, I guess it's feel biased. You're trying to not like, oh, just because our teams are doing good, like, oh, this is the tournament, the best tournament ever.
Yeah.
But it has been pretty good so far. Of course, like I said, there's going to be a few, snoozers just of the nature of the games and travel and that type of thing. But it's off to a good start, I think. And it happens every year, but you're like, oh yeah, in the tournament, you're kind of excited. And you're like, damn, after like the first weekend, like it's kind of not to be downer, but as far as watching games from the beginning of the day to the end, it's like it's pretty much done. Like you're like, oh, now we're only down to a few games a day, going from like 4 games at a time. That doesn't last very long, and it's more of act like, man, I wish we could do that a little bit longer. And I think we mentioned before kind of heading in, it's the pacing of the games doesn't make sense on the third and fourth day of the tournament. I guess, I mean, once you get through the play-ins, how it's, you play one game at 11, one at 1, and then you go like 4 and 2. And
Yeah.
Let's go. Can we have 2 at a time? Because once it's halftime or in between games, like, what do I do now? Like, what do I just need to sit here? Like, I want to watch basketball.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to do. Like, come on. But it has been fun. But that's always kind of I guess, the beef that you have. But I guess you just adapt to that.
Yeah, that's always been a problem, and why they always insist on doing it this way, I don't know. But yeah, it's not ideal when you got the weekends. I mean, hell, most of us, you got the day. I mean, yeah, of course, everybody's going to be busy doing something one time or another, but why not get 2 going at a time at least? Here, instead of bunching them all up, like you said, you ends up kind of 4 overlapping themselves right at that certain window there towards the late dinner window. But whatever, I guess it is what it is. Yeah, we adjust and we adapt. But we got a couple left here, and then yeah, we'll have a little bit of waiting. Sweet 16 games there at the end of this upcoming week, and then on into the Elite Eight. So that's where we sit here right now as we get rolling here on the show. Of course, we're going to recap some of those fun first round, second round games, talk about some teams that we think are playing really well, and then, of course, recap what our teams have done so far here in the tournament also. That's kind of what we've got on the docket for the show today. But as we get going, we always like to talk about what we're sipping on here and fueling us. And I know, of course, we've done probably plenty of that here these last few days, SJ, watching these games. So it might be kind of...
But this is one of my favorites, at least what I'm drinking now. But I'm just going to mention one that I was able to grab on my little short road trip out of town. But just sipping on the Topo Chico. It's the strawberry hibiscus version of their margarita.
Okay.
Can't really go wrong with them. Then that thing is smooth. That's which is kind of why, of course, for reasons we'll get to later, was up way too late last night, and then had made a quick road trip down to Oklahoma City for that to see the first round game at least. So yeah, like you said, it was a long couple of days, so taking it easy tonight. But it's definitely good. But while I was down there, a place called what is it? Capital Social, I believe, is the name. But it was basically kind of like the headquarters there for the Nebraska alumni and the fan base. Is literally like a 3-minute walk from the Paycom Center where the games are at. So that was nice. And man, I mean, it's a little bit of a, it's not like a huge downtown. I don't know if you've been there too much or anybody that has listing, but and I was kind of like, damn, how did they get an NBA team in here? That damn oil money comes in handy. But but it's not like a ton when you think of like cities you travel to and venture. But it was nice in the fact that prices were like amazing. I mean, you're getting $5 freaking beers and the $7 decent drinks and parked for $20 within like 2 blocks of the arena, which I don't remember the last time I paid that much without like having like, oh, I know where to park or the spots, maybe somewhere you live, or I go here all the time. I know the side street or wherever to park on. Like you don't get just like drive up parking close to arenas like that. So that was the nice part of it. And other side of it was a lot of places run out of beer, but we can get to that later. But one of them I did try while I was there. I wanted to find another Dunkel I had, so I don't know if anybody gets a hold of this at Social Capital. They had a Dunkel on that was amazing. I had a nice little breakfast beer, but I also did grab one called Worth the Squeeze. Of course, had to get my sours in. This is Sky Dance Brewing, so I usually Prairie Artisan Ales is a big one for me, but I tried Sky Dance and they didn't really miss either. 7.5% ABV too, so nice little kick there. But sour beer, I had to get me 1 or 2 on that 90 plus degree day, which I wasn't complaining. That felt amazing.
Yeah, yeah, you can't beat that. March, we never know, what you're gonna get. It could be sleeting, raining, cold, hell, snowing for that matter. Sometimes, yeah, when you're getting a day like that, and it feels like summertime, that's a beautiful, beautiful setup situation. Yeah, it sounds like a great opportunity to enjoy the day there with a nice accommodations there for you. So that's awesome. I am drinking one that I just talked about here right now recently, so I'm not going to really go over that again. But I'm having another one of the on the buttons from Confluence Brewing. But I did want to give a shout out, and of course the perfect time to do so. Hopefully this is not the last time I get to enjoy a Cyclone branded beer to celebrate a victory, but. The fine folks at Back Pocket Brewing, I did have a couple to try to usher in the magic along here a little bit today, and it helped out. So they've got the Forever True Blonde Ale there from Back Pocket that's teamed up with the official licensing there for Iowa State, and they did an excellent job here this spring with bringing back the old Walking Psy basketball logo to put on the can. So it looks pretty sweet. So that's why I had to pick them up. And yeah, it's giving a little boost here during the postseason. So thanks to them, and thanks for hitting up the perfect artwork on that bad boy too. So I'm gonna save one of those for the display shelf. All right, moving into these games and. What we've got, yeah. I mean, that you mentioned the weather, and I had to mention that too. And not many times that I felt super comfortable sitting out on the deck enjoying the games, but I did that for 2 days straight in a row there on Friday and Saturday because it was just perfect weather. Even Thursday night wasn't bad. I enjoyed a little bit of that. I got it dusted off on Thursday night, and then Friday was, full bore. Sat out there and enjoyed watching the Cyclones and then the rest of the games that were happening. It was a really beautiful weekend here to enjoy the weather and the basketball. But we had some fun games. Had some good first round upsets. Some early games that came down to the wire. I will say, I think there were a couple of them there in that when we first got started, where I just felt like there were a couple of teams that really just kind of like screwed the pooch as far as how they finished the game, or at least given themselves an opportunity at the end of the game. The first one started with the very first game, that Ohio State TCU contest, because, it was back and forth. TCU was up. Ohio State came roaring back, got the lead, and then they came to kind of blow for blow there at the end. And Ohio State, if I remember correctly, they had like 4 seconds left there in that last possession, and they tried to run a give and go to the guy who inbounded it, and it just took him forever to even get anywhere. And then he ended up taking like a half sideways heave from half court, and it's like, with that amount of time, can you at least get yourself a look at a shot? To me, that's just unexcusable that you can't at least get some sort of look at the hoop, even if it's further back and you're still square. Like, that's almost better to me than trying to get close and then being so, awkward and goofy that it has no prayer of going in. And you saw that in that game. And then later, Wisconsin with the big heave up all the way up the floor where they were just trying to get it somewhere. And like, yeah, I get it. You only have a couple seconds, but again, you're not giving yourself a guaranteed chance at a shot. And I just think that a few of those teams kind of blew those situations early on in the tournament.
I mean, especially the Ohio State one, but I was only getting like bits and pieces of that because they don't show replays in the arenas, but for some reason, live look-ins of of the other game. So I was just getting bit and pieces, and it kind of played out, which I think for teams, it's almost like the dreaded like early tip-offs within those first couple of days, because it just feels like it's I don't know, especially if you don't have a good crowd on hand, or it's in a weird location, or a team that is kind of what do you want to call it, a formidable underdog. It just kind of plays out, and this one's an 8-9, so this isn't really in that case. But it just seemed like it's just like kind of hanging around, keeping it close, and I was like, if they don't pull away here, they're gonna end up kind of pissing it away, which ended up being the case. And I know they got it. Thornton, I guess, would you consider their best player, but it wasn't a good shot. It wasn't an open look, anything like that. He just kind of chucked it up. So I agree with you on that. And then the Wisconsin one was more of that thing where it wasn't as early of a start, but still a fairly early in that first window tip, where if you just how High Point. I know their coach was a little bit overconfident, but even if you're being honest, they're probably saying just get to the under 12 timeout within this, and by halftime we need to be within like 10 points. Just kind of hanging around, and they did that and then some. And then Wisconsin just kind of, I don't know, that last play you drove to the hoop, but I don't know if you really sold that. Kind of that, because basically when you're doing that, to me, you're going for the foul call. Like, of course, if you make it, it's just gravy, but you're trying to draw a foul and get to the free throw line, and he kind of just like almost like a fadeaway layup and get swatted, and then you're I guess you're down now with like basically no time to go. So I didn't think that would happen, for the fact that the game that was one of those everyone thought, the bracketologist of the fans were saying, oh, High Point's going to win. So usually when everyone's on that, it doesn't usually happen that way. But I guess Wisconsin didn't hear all the chatter of everyone picking against them, and wasn't enough fuel because they had been playing pretty well.
Yeah, they really had.
In the last 2 months almost. They hadn't really had a bad game. I mean, of course, they dropped one or two, but they've been pretty consistent even into the conference tournament. So that was a little bit surprising, just because, not that High Point isn't good enough to do it. Obviously they are, but the way they played was a little bit underwhelming. But then even kind of right after that, Duke had their struggles as well. That Siena game didn't, they didn't look so. I mean, looked much better in the next round, of course, but opening day. And then I did stay for a little bit of that after the Vanderbilt, and it apparently according to the in arena announcer, it's McNeese. Is the name of the team that was playing, and I mean that was kind of a back and forth there too, with looked like maybe an upset brewing, but just kind of had too many weapons and too many athletes. But that was another one. There was just plenty of them, where even more so than the usual, like maybe 10 minutes or even a whole half of playing. They got into the second half where it was kind of still up in the air of who might win that game.
Yeah, and I think obviously that got a lot of people edgy and itchy there with that going on. Most people having them, obviously going a very, very long ways, if not some people winning it, of course, in the picks. So that is interesting, and it was a fun game, and I think it was a reminder early on. We always everybody, I think, and especially casual fans, will fall into the trap of really believing in the seeds, when we start getting into the tournament and thinking, oh, why the hell is this team beating this team? Well, I mean, we've seen it happen now. I mean, it used to be back in the day, the 116 thing wasn't believable. Well, it's happened. And we've seen plenty of other high seeds, twos and threes, lots of them go down over time now. So we know that gap is kind of closed a little bit over time. Yeah, it's a new world too with this whole NIL thing and I think that maybe has a more bigger impact down the road when we come to the tournament. But still, a one-off in basketball, there's a lot that can happen. You can have a bad day and another team have a really good day, and it doesn't take a lot of time, to make it a precarious situation for a good team. So, it's not to say that they're garbage and the rest of their season doesn't matter, but you also have to be of that reality mindset that hey, all these teams are good enough to be here. They're probably good enough to win a game that they're not supposed to, and you got to be prepared for it. And I think that's what that a little wake up call there for the Blue Devils for sure.
I mean, it's more for like casual observers or just people that want to do some of their offers and have fun. But there's a reason all these companies and whoever is willing to be like, we'll give you $1 million, whatever dollars or this if you can pick every game right, because it's impossible. Like, you're not going to do it. Now, I like to actually like think like maybe you could get some right and be pretty successful at like like this team winning. You'd almost have to go like round by round and not necessarily live betting, but you pick all the first round games and those like second chance brackets or even just a round by
Mm-hmm.
round type of thing. But even just not filling out a bracket, but just like trying to pinpoint a winner just to see how good you could how well you can do. You almost have to, like you said, go game by game or whatever, because there's gonna be somebody's off, just can't put it in the hoop, and if a team that really relies heavily on the 3-point game and they're just off, or a team gets hot and hits like 10, 12 threes in a game,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, well, it's not much you can do about that, and you have an off night or injuries, of course, or somebody gets sick. We've seen several teams like UCLA didn't have one of their top guys. Of course, you don't want to bring up anything that rubs salt in you, but I mean, there's just a lot of teams that you're not going to be the only ones either. There's
Mm-hmm.
going to be somebody else or something else is going to happen. Even with the Nebraska and Vanderbilt game, I mean, I think he was mostly flopping and kind of trying to sell some, but there was, it looked like he might have messed up his ankle at one point. Their, leading scorer, a guy that was kind of keeping him in the game at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something when you're picking, on whatever March 18th or 19th for something that's going to happen in the first weekend in April.
Yeah.
There's a lot of time between now and then. So, but that's also the fun. I guess what makes it interesting is because there's so much that you don't know what's going to happen. The theater of the
Yeah.
unexpected type of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot that has to happen, and I think it also emphasizes just how much fun or how much brilliant an accomplishment it is for the team that does win this thing and pull it off. It's you got to have a lot of things break your way, and not all of them that are in your control either. You got some luck along the way, that's for sure. And we've seen that, I think, for a lot of teams over time. Going through that first couple of days, we already talked about, of course, High Point was an exciting upset early in the day. A lot of folks were excited to see that happen. Then there was another fun game later in the day. This one, though, was fun in a different kind of way. That VCU North Carolina game is like North Carolina obviously fell apart late in the game and let VCU come back. They led by 19 at one point, for goodness sakes, and VCU comes roaring back, gets it to OT, and then we go to overtime, and it was like, we might go to double overtime without anybody scoring, because they didn't score for like 4 minutes of the overtime session until finally somebody got one home. It was VCU, and they ended up pulling off the 4-point win, 82-78. That was, luckily for me, one of the few things that I picked correctly there on day one, so it made me feel a little better. But it was because it was a sheer luck. I mean, they had no business winning the game the way it played out, but still, sometimes that's the way it goes, though. Like, you get those games that are fun because teams are playing well, and then sometimes it's because just nobody can do anything right, and it's like somebody's going to get something done and win this thing, and that's how that one played out at least in the late portion of the game.
Yeah, I was kind of on the side of it. I thought for a long time. I was like, man, I couldn't pull the trigger on it. Of course, you're like, damn it, why didn't I do it? I should have just went with it, just because North Carolina had been a team the opposite of like what we talk about Wisconsin. They just been they've had a few games here or there, but they had no, the consistency wasn't there for much of the season at all. And then Of course, coaching's been in question for, going back a couple years at least, just the fact of if is he the obviously, I would say no even before this, but now it's like you gotta figure he's not probably the right man for the job. But so, yeah,
Mhm.
that one it was fun to watch because I mean, I know we do these picks and or at least with the brackets and everyone does those things, but, I'm still always like, once it gets going, I'm watching it. I'm pretty much almost unless it's a team I really care about, I'm almost always rooting for the underdog.
Mhm.
It's like, it's just more fun that way, like, I just like, come on, get even, like, in that Duke game, I was like, that I mean, of course, it would've screwed up the bracket I put out there, but there
Yeah.
man, then let's have some fun and do something different, like,
Yeah.
come on, Sienna, make it happen, so,
Mhm.
I guess I don't know if you're that way, but I just always end up doing that even if it's somebody that so I try to pick, like of course, I wanna get it right, so I'm picking who I think's gonna win, but if it's one of those where it's, like, borderline, I'm like, "Who am I gonna be rooting for anyways, and who do I would I
Yeah.
rather think could win 50-50?" Like, take that because you're gonna be you're not gonna be thinking of at least, I mean, maybe you will, I don't know, but when I just at a sports bar or whatever watching, I'm just, like, kinda just getting in the moment, the momentum, whatever's happening. I'm not like, "Hold on, I gotta see who I picked before I decide who I'm gonna
Yeah.
who I want to
Yeah.
win." Like, I might go back and look later, be like, "Oh, shit, I should have been cheering for the other team," but,
Yeah.
yeah, that was good, and then, like, for me, the first day, like, the bigger surprises was I mean, it's carried over too was how well Texas played,
Mhm.
and then, I mean, I thought St. Louis I mean, that was an 8-9, so not a big upset, but just the freaking beatdown they put on Georgia, which kinda proves our point of how the SEC was kind of, I we don't know how they got that many teams as they got in because they have no business, the teams that made it for them. They just, getting embarrassed like that.
Yeah, that one was shocking. I again, I'm like you. I thought I picked St. Louis. I thought they'd win the game, but I didn't think they would just blow them out. I mean, that wasn't even a game from the get go. They put them away early. And Texas, you're right. I mean, especially for the way it carried over. I mean, not only do they beat BYU, I guess it made me feel a little bit better that they won again because I did have BYU winning a couple of games. I just thought that um, and I should have, I guess the analysis, of course, and I've talked about this time and time again with the tournament, is you typically need good guard play to at least carry you far in the tournament. But sometimes I think some other star power can get you a game or two, and I just kind of thought that would be what happens with Devonsa there in BYU, and he tried. I mean, dude had a hell of a game; he just couldn't get any help. But yeah, I mean the big guy inside for Texas is just like, how the hell do you compete with that? When I mean the guy he just has to stand there. Like he's going to get most of the rebounds if he's in the right area. He doesn't even have to be in the right spot because he's so damn big and long. And yeah, he had a hell of a game there in that first round to get him that win over BYU, and then just carry it right over into the game against Gonzaga. Vocatitis. So you 23 and 16 in the first game, and then what am I looking at here? He went next game 17 and 9. I mean, yeah, so damn near double easy in both games. Guys everywhere, and yeah, I mean, with his size, I mean, obviously they're a matchup problem. I'll be honest, I didn't know much about them because I didn't think they were one of the teams that really deserved to be in the tournament in the first place. But here they are, and yeah, you get somebody like that, and that's a matchup problem.
Well, I mean, it kinda makes you wonder, like, how the hell did they not win more games when you have
Exactly.
a inside presence like that? Because most teams don't, even if they have some height like that, it's somebody that probably stretches the floor or plays, from outside in and not the opposite way, so, yeah, that was a I mean, I guess that kinda leads into the I guess, not many disappointments, but just, like, kind of things I just, like, I don't know why I didn't see that coming, and that's probably Gonzaga. They
Mm-hmm.
just I'm putting them in that I mean, I mentioned the teams in historic recent history that I kinda feel nervous picking to go beyond Sweet 16. I mentioned like a Pitt when they used to be in the tournament very often, and even like a Purdue who seems to kind of always fall short. But I mean, I guess so far so good for them. But I got to put them in that category too, at least for mine. It's like you just, I mean, I don't know what it is. It is whenever there's some type of a higher level of expectation, they just don't seem to be able to meet it. Now, when they're a 6 or 7 seed, they might do something crazy and come out of nowhere, but they just haven't never to at least for an extended period of time, being able to handle that, being the marked man, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
compared to being the underdog. And then to start the second day, I think it was the first game of the day, wasn't it? That Santa Clara, Kentucky, man.
Yeah.
I thought like Santa Clara kind of got jobbed there. I was driving back, so I was only listening, but that one hurt. And that was, of course, not a big upset, but 10-7. I kind of marked that one on the list. I just
Yeah,
thought
I did too.
Kentucky hadn't, of course, they can get blowing out pretty good in the next round, but I just thought that was a good spot there, and that was kind of that was a little bit of a downer there on that second day.
Well, and to me, anytime anytime you got a bank shot that gets you to OT, like it never makes me feel good. Never makes me feel like that's the
Well,
way it should
even
have
on
gone.
the underdog thing too, it's like you freaking you knew you had to win it in regulation. Of course, as the players, they're not thinking
Mm-hmm.
that way, but just seeing the games you've seen over the years, and just when you're the kind of you're not expected to win, of course, and you're kind of on a little bit of a heater there, momentum. So you got to win it, and it's not like they did anything wrong. You just freaking banked in some bullshit shot, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's what happens
Let's go.
sometimes.
Yeah.
I think there was a few questionable foul calls maybe down the
Yeah.
stretch, but that's part of the game. That's just how it goes. Is refs are refs. So, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was unfortunate for them. But I guess I mean it wasn't like Kentucky still going on a run or nothing, but
Yeah.
still, that was a hell of a way to start the second day, though.
Yeah, it was for sure. Rest of the day really mostly went according to Hoyle. There wasn't a lot of upsets, so to speak, the rest of the way there on that day too. Utah State beat Villanova. A lot of people had that pick though too, and I did too. I just thought I wasn't impressed. Not, I guess in the Big East in general, the way the season
Yeah.
played out, there wasn't a lot of teams that really, wowed you throughout the day. UCF UCLA turned out to be a pretty decent game there in that later window. They kind of traded blows there for a while, and UCLA pulled it off by 4 in the end. And then Mizzou Miami was fun for a while, and then Miami found a gear to notch it into there at the end of the game. I admit I was. I was struggling. I lost my momentum. I fell asleep at the end of the day in that one, and it was decently close still. I think Miami had a couple point lead when I dozed, and then I woke up and saw the score, and I was like, "Holy crap! How did they pull away that far in that a little amount of time?" But and especially against the crowd, of course, they were up against. I mean, Mizzou basically had a home game down the street, but yeah, Miami. That's pretty impressive, really, in that situation to be able to pull that off.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact time, but it was tied like with it in like the last 4 minutes
I
at
think
least
so.
that
Yeah.
after the last time out. And I was like, I'm saying with you, I was watching and freaking dozed off, and I woke up and I was like, what the hell? And they were talking to the Miami guys. So I'm like, oh, they won, but I was like, oh, I'm probably won four, a couple baskets maybe. It's like a double digit win. I'm like, what the hell happened down the stretch? I was like, I need to go back and watch that, but I didn't. That I was just I was long days or whatever. That was
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting. And then even I guess maybe we should have saw it coming, but the Kansas kind of sleptwalked through their game, so that late night window was a little bit tough to get through when you had those kind of a couple 2 games in a row that were big time blowouts. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's gonna happen. I mean, it's not like but it doesn't help with your alertness there, especially when you're going from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. basically a 12-hour window.
Yeah. And then as we moved on into the weekend here in the round of 32, Saturday really started kind of ho hum. You could have got your chores done. You could have got all your whatever done early in the day and not really missed much. Michigan took care of business against St. Louis, really pulled away there. Michigan State fairly comfortable win over Louisville. They were ahead most of that game, and then Duke blew out TCU. Kind of got their rhythm back a little bit. It felt like Houston also same story, took care of business against A&M, and then we finally got some entertainment later in the evening. That Texas win over Gonzaga. Illinois pulled away against VCU, and then of course your squad's game that we'll talk about here in a minute there with Nebraska and Vandy, probably undoubtedly the highlight of the day. High Point did give a run of the money there to Arkansas in the late game. They were right with them. I think what was a 2-point game at halftime, and they were there. I mean, they had their opportunities, and it was just the difference in the one-star player that kind of made the difference for Arkansas at the end of the game. Acuff's a really good guard, and he's just he's just kind of different, I guess, to me. He's one of those long guards that kind of is more like slashy and can do things inside that other guys can't do that are of that smaller stature. And he just kind of imposed his will there at the end of the game. And they asked, of course, they interviewed Calipari afterwards, and that's pretty much what he said. He's like, well, we trusted this guy, we gave him the ball, and that's what happened. He stole the show. But it was a good game, and give High Point credit for being right in there.
I mean, of course, you wanted. I was again wanting to see an upset. I mean, that coach, he was. I don't know. He was a little bit hard to root for that High Point coach. A little like chill out, bro. Ease off the Red Bulls or whatever you're drinking there. He was a little bit too intense for. We were just it's just a basketball game here. It's not that big a deal. Trying to a little bit too motivational speech quote on the wall type of guy. I don't really care for that, but it was a good game, and they have a good team. There's no denying that.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of annoying. And when you do have a I mean, they're a 12 seed just because of the conference they play in the competition. But as far as a basketball team, they're probably better than a 12 seed. But because of the where they play and the type of the players they get, that level of athleticism is kind of what lifted Arkansas over compared to they're good basketball players, good shooters, and could score. But it's when you're kind of getting down to the crunch time and that type of thing, and a loose ball, can't outrun the guy, and or a rebound, go long rebound, you just you're going up, and the guy's elbows are freaking over your head getting the rebound. I mean, there's just too a little too athletic, but you got to be able to score to make the difference, and that was where Arkansas has the ability to score points. Because I mean, even still, they gave High Point puts up 88, so it's not like they freaking shut them down and made like a low scoring game. They kind of played their game, but Arkansas's ability to score kind of canceled out, and then their athleticism just put them over the top. But that was a pretty entertaining game still.
Yeah, it was a good one.
At least I got saw of it because that wasn't a good timing, at least for me. I got the end, but most of the stuff I probably missed.
Yeah.
Pulling my hair out on the other end.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
And then what we've seen so far here today, we did have the early game of the day with Purdue pulling away from Miami in the end, 79-69. Credit, I think, also to a lot of their experience. They had, their experienced guys come pull through. Maybe when one guy wasn't having the best day, they had another step up and hit some shots. Fletcher Lawyer had a big game for him. And then, it seemed like the guys that were maybe a little bit quiet, like Clough, he came through with a couple of big buckets there at the end of the game. So they're a tough team. They've got a good, nice pieces. We'll see how they continue to move on here. St. John's, Kansas ended up being a thriller down to the wire. St. John's really had control of the game for most of it. It seemed like for the most of the game, it was either a 6-5 point lead for St. John's. That's kind of where it hung for a good chunk. And then late, Kansas was able to kind of extend it. They did some fouling strategy and then just tried to keep getting closer and closer. They did end up tying the game with a couple of free throws from Darren Peterson, and then a last possession opportunity for St. John's, and a guy who kind of really struggled to make anything at all ends up going down the lane with the offhand, not his strong hand, makes a layup at the horn for them to win. Pretty exciting finish, and I thought was a fairly well played game. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it was entertaining to watch for sure.
I mean, going with the Purdue, that was also kind of like, I guess, maybe a little bit different of what we see, kind of with games these days. But I think it was like at least 6 to 8 of their last points were all free throws. I mean, that's not a new strategy, but I didn't think we get those extended games anymore where you just keep going to the free throw line and trying to like trade buckets there. And then even the St. John's Kansas, that was like, I mean, I guess you could call it a defensive battle. I just think it was maybe not such a great offense.
Yeah.
But it was a lower scoring thing. So those two games at least were a little bit different style than some of these other, high scoring affairs. Because other than that, not both teams, but at least one team was cracking the 80s, or even in that Tennessee Virginia that just kind of wrapped up here as both would have got like a 151 total there. So a little higher scoring games today, at least across so far we've got kind of played out. But yeah, that Kansas, I mean, like I mentioned before, after the opening round performance, that'd be one where I'd like to, have that pick back and be like, I'll go St. John's. But after what last year, I just couldn't pick them. St. John's, I thought they're going to make a hell of a run last year and end up, Arkansas gets them in the second round. So I just couldn't do it. But I did think that was definitely a toss up, and I mean, kind of played out that way. Came down to the last possession.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I don't think anybody should feel bad about that either way. I did end up, even though I'm a Big 12 biased guy, ended up going St. John's in that game just because I didn't like the confidence that Kansas had there at the end of the year, and Self kind of calling them out in the way that they played in the Big 12 semis. I just kind of felt, I don't know, that's not the right mojo you need here at the right time of the year. And I think that's kind of how they continued to play. It wasn't their best for sure. I mean, when you saw them at their best this season, they were a really good team when they're clicking. But just they didn't have that going at the end of the year, but certainly had some talent. And then you mentioned the game that just wrapped up. Pretty good battle between Tennessee and Virginia. Tennessee ends up pulling it off 79-72, so Tennessee will move on to face Iowa State in Chicago. So that was another interesting battle. Yeah, they were just kind of trading blow for blow there in that game. And then the one that's in progress right now, interesting. Florida's a little bit on the ropes here. Iowa's up by 4 with about 10 minutes left to go in the game. As we're watching it, Arizona right now is a 7-point lead over Utah State early. Well, I guess 2 minutes till halftime in that one. That's a little bit of a low-scoring affair going there too. But that's what we have on the docket right now. So I guess that kind of leads us right in to talking about our squads. SJ, obviously for you, special experience, being able to go yourself there in person and witness, history for your program, getting that first NCAA tournament win, and then being able to back that up with an exciting game there yesterday to get to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, it was. Times have been few and far between, and missed out on Memphis, so it wasn't happening this time, and that was a little bit more of a couple years ago. The team was, probably more explosive, maybe I guess in some ways than this team is, at least across the board, but definitely a more put together team, and this felt like I had to make it happen. And thought that is a pretty good chance of, and I guess I don't even remember the percentage, but I do know they were like the most popular, like, to lose in the first round of upset picks or something like
Really?
and I was like, oh man, those brackets, that was kind of nice to mess everybody, especially as a 4 seed, to mess everybody's brackets up. That was pretty good there for the thing. But as far as, getting down, like I said, it was a, decent setup, like pretty and then of course the number of fans, like before then there's a lot of rumblings like, oh, there's going to be a lot of people there, and you expect so, and just for as far as like the opportunities, been maybe some on the slim side, but also it's the distance wise, and you're kind of in an area where probably like a lot of alums live, or familiar territory where you expect quite a few to show up. But it was definitely much more than I was like, oh, there's a crap ton of people here, just because you walk, like I said, we parked close. You walk up to a couple of the sports bars around the arena, and you're like just seeing a lot of fans, but you don't really can't gauge it until you get into like a stadium or an arena, and like, because whatever, 50 people walking around, it's like when you put them in a 17,000 seat arena or whatever it is, it doesn't really seem like, oh, it might not be that much.
Mm-hmm.
But you get in there, it's like, it was almost damn near full, at least the opening round. And I think, at least from, I only got to check out the one game, but don't after that it ended, I'm in this arena, I'm checking should I make this work, seeing what tickets were like for the for the next day. I thought about maybe I was like, maybe I can hang around for another day or so, but I wasn't able to, just had other things going on. But yeah, it was as far as the game went, it was kind of nice to get done with that, get that crap taken care of, and also kind of enjoy the moment and not be like a nail biter or anything like that. Just I guess within the first maybe like 7 or 8 minutes, was like most of these games, you have to kind of stick close and you're within like 5, but then by halftime I was double digit lead, and then I think maybe cut it down to like 12 or something early in the second half. But then after that, it was kind of pretty much done dealing after that, and just kind of having fun, and wolfing the crowd up a little bit and kind of going crazy there. So that was a good time. But yeah, it was a you know can't say too much bad about the experience. It was a fun time. Of course, like I said, there was I mean, some issues with I guess I don't some of these sites, and it's not even just this one. You go to these places and you're like, you guys realize like this like is a big event, right? It's not
Yeah.
just like your typical like
Yeah, this ain't-
weekend. It's not just your typical Saturday weekend there, and
Yeah, this
you
ain't
know,
Monster Jam, like.
yeah, and and you're like, also this is like an NBA arena, so I know you don't get people coming in from different states. A little bit here and there, but you're not getting like thousands of fans coming in for every Thunder game, but you have like an NBA franchise.
Mhm.
Like, you think you'd be a little bit more well positioned to like handle a decent sized crowd. So that was kind of maybe surprising. I didn't care. It didn't really affect the moment. We still had lots of fun. There's always something to find to drink or eat or whatever. So it wasn't a big deal. It's just like kind of more surprising. Like, what the hell's wrong with you guys? It's like, and then I thought it was just like me or something, but it's not some, conversations online where I was like, okay, it wasn't just me, but like, it seemed like a lot of the like bartenders and they're like kind of like, oh god, they're like pissed off. Every place was so busy. Like, they're like mad. They're like, do you guys not like money?
Yeah, do you hate money?
Yeah, like, yeah, I just would take it elsewhere. And like, even one, I tried to walk into this. There was a popular bar that was, they had a hell of a great TV setup,
Mhm.
and that's why everyone's trying to go there and try to go in twice, and just like getting yelled at, like, we're at capacity, we're at capacity. I'm like, dude, there's not. I mean, and it wasn't even like that. I mean, it was a smaller place, but there wasn't even that many people. And I was like, all right, I guess we'll go somewhere else. Like, it's not that big a deal. Just trying to check it out. It's kind of right by where they have their AAA ballpark there for I think it's a Dodgers affiliate. But
Oh,
yeah, I
okay.
mean, the game played as well as it could do, and then even the last night, I mean, that game was freaking wacky. And I'm kind of like, obviously you want to always be there in person, all that, but man, it was almost like better to like kind of be at home to like no, I guess have if you need to walk away for a second, or because that's the downside when you're at games and you can't really, you're gonna when if you leave your seat, you're gonna miss it. But at least
Hmm.
you can walk into the other room real quick, or go grab a drink, or like, just do something to clear your head for a second if you're gonna pause the TV and come back to it. But yeah, that was not saying they're a bad team. I thought it could have been a little bit bigger of a margin, but just the way it played out, they got hot from three, and just
Hmm.
guess was glad he was able to kind of match that because and it did for I mean, there was a lot of things kind of going against not necessarily like saying there's any like, oh, the bad calls or anything, but it was just like the momentum was really on Vanderbilt's side there that last 5 minutes.
Hmm.
But they were kind of whatever they had an answer for it. So that's kind of nice to see. And then there was some players that maybe have not, scored that many points or just kind of been struggles of their own lately, and we were able to step up and kind of meet the moment there. So that's another good sign to see. So yeah, that was a oh man, that was a fun watch and just you try to like take yourself away from it. But even if you didn't care, but like that was just a hell of a game and probably one of the better games of the tournament so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what I took away. Yeah. First, it was cool to see that moment there in the first round that you got to witness in person. The excitement from the team and the fans, and obviously like I've said before, obviously with Fred being there, we got a little love going on there for his family and what they've meant to both places now. And that was cool to see him, and especially for him to be able to do that with your son. I can't imagine what that has to be like. And credit to them that they didn't let that be the end of the story either. They went out and were ready to play the next game. But yeah, that to me that was one of the games so far of the tournament. That's what you want to see. It reminded me a little bit of some of those games that we did get in the Big 12 tournament. That Iowa State Arizona game, that Arizona Houston game. Just teams trading blows. That's what you want to see. You want to see teams, doing their best. And that doesn't mean just making shots, but it's better when teams do. I mean, in my opinion, I'm not gonna lie, that it's more exciting that way. And that's what they were both doing. I mean, it took the thing that I thought was amazing earlier points in the game, late, like you said, the momentum really had gone Vanderbilt's way. But I thought there were a lot of moments earlier where Vanderbilt had gotten, maybe a couple buckets in a row, and you thought, oh, is this going to be where the tide turns? And Nebraska would come back and make a shot and just kind of get it back out to that like 6, 7 point lead. And they did that a lot all throughout the night. So that's what I was impressed with there for the Huskers. I mean, both teams, if you look at the numbers, really shot the ball well on a whole. I mean, Nebraska shot 55% from the field for the game. That's real good. That's a damn good game. So they were there, but like you said, 13 3-pointers for Vandy did make a big difference. Tyler Tanner was incredible. I mean, that guy had a hell of a game. Some of the steals that he was able to pull off, it's like, holy crap, I don't know how he just did that. And then the fact that the dude's 6 foot and he can get up and throw it down, I mean, give him credit for that too. Now, of course,
Yeah.
it wasn't without some heart attack there at the end, and it's one of those two where like, okay, most of the time, like the Kentucky thing that pissed me off. Like in these situations, you would feel like you still feel bad about it because it's not your atypical moment, but at the same time, in that moment, for that kid, I would have been like, he maybe kind of deserved that, just the way that he played his ass off. Maybe the team didn't, but the way he played did. And man, that thing was halfway down and came back out. I don't know how the hell. Like, and even Fred afterwards, of course, was like, I don't know what to say. I'm still in shock right now. Like that's a hell of a way to end a basketball game. Heartbreak on one side, obviously, but that was fun just to see him. And I think that was just the icing on the cake of the way the game was. It was just so good. You had to have a moment like that to end it.
Well, and I think even if you talk to like the Nebraska ball fans that have been around for a while, not just like, of course, if you have a good team, you're gonna get more people to want to come watch it. But the ones that have actually like suffered through some tough years. That's kind of like how it had to end. You couldn't just make it
Yeah,
easy.
yeah, yeah.
You had to have a little bit of, because even that's why I think that was like a lot of nerves going into like the first game, because it's like there's gonna be something that's some BS is gonna something's gonna happen where it's like this should happen, but it's not because of this. So that was probably part of the battle there too. But the only thing other than the game, of course you win and it's great. But I was even talking to here to the family. I'm like, I would have been, of course, disappointed if they lost, but not that was even before it got to the half court thing. But I also wouldn't have been like, if the like pissed off variety where I was like, they played well.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes like the
yeah.
team just so like the times I really get kind of frustrated. I'm like, kind of sticks with you for a couple of days. Is like, well, you don't play your best and then you end up getting it's like as long as they played as well as they could have played, honestly. So of course, it's easier to say when you win and you're gonna be disappointed and upset that if it would have went the other way. But they gave themselves a chance to win. That's all you can really do. But the neutral site thing was kind of getting annoying to me with the fact that dude, no one like there wasn't anything where like we're gonna give you guys free tickets and you can go there. Like everybody literally took off work or just didn't go, whatever they did, spent their money get there, bought the tickets and got there. Like anybody could have done that.
Yeah.
It's you just chose not to like that. And so acting like, oh, this was unfair. Like, dude, it's literally like it's not like we played in Omaha.
No, yeah,
It'd be different
yeah,
if I could then like in
yeah.
some
It
because
took
someone
effort.
had a yeah yeah someone could have had a freaking someone had a thing I should have saved it about like how like it's Florida to Tampa and like one of the teams to St. Louis and wherever all the sites there was like at least 4 or 5 teams and of course they're higher seats so they should be but they were all within shorter distances and not to say this like to like say oh it's better or brag about it but none of them had the amount of fans they had and of course they've been there more so this is a unique thing but it's still like everybody had the ability to do this.
Hmm.
So it's not like they're, and it's probably just like sour grapes and Vanderbilt mostly or other, Big Ten teams that, just always got to pipe up when their team's not even in the tournament. But it's just, and I don't know, it was just, that was the only one thing that was kind of annoying. It's like you literally could have done the same thing. There was no
Hmm.
advantage. They just made it an advantage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when I had one of buddies text early on, oh well, I might have picked Nebraska if I knew it was going to be a home game. I was like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, you could have expected that they're going to have a good following, like, and like you said, it's a unique thing. Like they haven't had that opportunity forever. Fans are itching to have a moment like that, and that's why they went. I mean, and don't underestimate a Midwesterner's ability just to get in a car and drive somewhere. I mean, everybody's always like, "Oh well, fuck, I won't drive 2 hours down, go anywhere. I'm gonna get in a plane." Like, well, yeah, that's ideal, but hell, it's a straight shot 7 hour drive. It's not that hard. Like we can make it happen. So, yeah, I credit to Nebraska fans. They did it. They showed out. That was an awesome atmosphere. I mean, to me, it's rather what you'd want in, a moment like that is to have a fun game rather than just like nothing,
Like a full
yeah,
crowd.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like, I don't know, whatever. I mean, it made it fun. I mean, it's not like Vanderbilt didn't have a chance to win either. They played their way into a chance to win. So I thought it was great. It was cool to see. Yeah, and hell of a win.
When these arenas are already kind of stale anyways with how it's all the courts are just look the same. You don't really know where it's at until you see the baseline and you want the freaking I mean, I guess talking about run out of stuff like all the merchandise was anything I wanted to buy was like sold out before, the tip of the first game, which was
Hmm.
at 11. It was the first game of the day and they already sold out of everything. You didn't plan for more than
Yeah,
one day. I'm like,
yeah.
so maybe they just could only sell so much per day. I don't know, but so to have a good atmosphere, I think is a good thing. And I think some of the a lot of teams do that. It just was kind of just amplified in this case. But I don't. I just figure even just watching it, I think it'd be more like, man, this is awesome or cool. But and I guess everyone just has a different opinion. Maybe it depends on the team. Like I don't look at Duke because I don't even like them. I never really cheer for them. But if you see one of their games, you're like, man, that's a cool. Like they have a good
Hmm.
atmosphere at their home. Even Kansas, like I never cheer for them, but they have good home, or
Yeah,
good
I
arenas and
respect
good
it. Yeah,
support. Like not like I'm like, oh well, that's the only reason they win. Well, I mean, it's
people do it.
why wouldn't you do that? Yeah, like I'll not show up and hope my team wins instead of going and like trying to do all you can as a fan to like kind of help them be the best they can be. I don't know why you just be like, I'll just complain on the internet instead.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. So yeah, very cool. And obviously now they're waiting to see who they're going to play. It's still a very close game between Iowa and Florida right now, coming down the last 5 minutes or so in the contest. So
Yeah, that's a bit of a
highlights.
surprise there. Not the, I mean, just I guess the matchups is what it's all about. Or is it, people say that it gets stupid, and it's like, oh, you're just saying that 'cause you don't know what you're talking about. But in many cases, it's just unfamiliar opponents. It does make a difference. And these games, you're still, I guess, what like a little bit over a day's notice of who you're playing. So you might you try to do a little scouting ahead of time, but you're not going to get too deep in the weeds on the team if you're not going to end up playing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, interesting stuff. Um, with my squad, obviously the way that the tournament started was like we're used to these things by now. As an Iowa State fan, you put your steel nut cup on and you wait for the moment that you're going to get kicked, and it seemed like, oh boy, here we go again. Within the first 3 minutes of the game, All-American Joshua Jefferson goes down with a rolled ankle. It was one of those where it's like, I mean, everybody that was all the analyst guys were like, oh, that looks so bad. Like, to me, it was like, I didn't think it looked that bad. Like, it was the front of his foot, which you'd rather have than like your whole foot being planted, I guess, in my opinion. Like, obviously it depends on how much weight came down on it, and obviously it was enough to be a bad deal. But so he's out. There you go. You lose your best player, arguably. And then he goes, and you don't know what his status is, so everybody's worried about that. Is it broken, and what's the deal? Is he ever going to be able to play again? Pretty certain the way it happened and the way he went off the court that he was not going to play that day for sure, and he was not going to play if you played again after the first round, because you're not putting weight on it. It's going to take more than a couple days to feel good about it. So that was a cloud, but then give the team some credit because they kind of flushed that immediately and started playing ball, and they were knocking down shots. I mean, I do, for one, think that Tennessee State had no business being on the floor. They were just not a very good team. But they also
Somebody had to do it.
yeah, but Iowa State was shooting the lights out of the ball too, and that's when they're a dangerous team because they're going to give people fits on defense no matter what. That's how they always play. And then you start knocking down shots on top of that, it's going to be a long night, and that's what it turned into. Played really well. Scored over 80 points, won the game, run it going away. It was no pressure, no worries. But then, of course, immediately the attention goes to, well, what are we going to do on Sunday without one of our guys? It was a concern going up against a Kentucky team that does have a lot of talent and certainly had a lot of guys that can do some different things. And the way the game started, it was like, oh, crap. Is this what's going to be? Like, we're just going to let this kill us? Because they were making shots and Iowa State was cold. But then, again, give them credit. They kind of stayed the course, just kept playing the way they play, kept turning the Kentucky over, even though they weren't shooting the ball well. And then by some miracle, led the game at halftime by a point. Nate Heisey hit a corner three. And then the second half was just a different story. I mean, they kept turning Kentucky over. You could tell that they didn't have the guys to handle as far as, handling the ball out front and being comfortable getting set up into their offense. And then Iowa State started shooting the ball better. And, of course, Kentucky stopped making every three that they took as well. So that changed the game. When it came to halftime, I thought, okay, this is in great shape. I mean, you weathered about as worse a scenario as you could possibly dream up, and you're ahead by a point. And I think things are going to turn here as the game moves along, and they did. So give Iowa State credit. Awesome to see him come out and just kind of put the hammer down and put him away in the second half of that. Obviously, that makes Joshua Jefferson feel a little bit better. That makes everybody on the team feel a little bit better. Now, of course, the big still question mark and hanging in the air is he going to be able to play come next week? He was out there riding a scooter with the walking boot here today. Of course, people are going to look into everything, but to me, it's like, if you're not going to let him play, then don't let him do anything because you want him to heal as much as possible. So I think that's what they're going with here. It will make a difference. The way that they played, though, like I still feel like they have a chance in this next contest against this Tennessee team on Friday, even if they don't have Jefferson back right away. Now, beyond that game, then I would get really worried because then you're going to run up against teams that I know have the more balance, to be able to take care of it. Tennessee does have some size. That is scary without a guy like that that's 6'9" and skilled. But I think they would at least have a fighting chance in that game. But overall, I mean, I can't be mad. I'm glad they came out and played the way that they did today, and it was exciting to see them, advance to the spot that I think they definitely deserve to be in here at the end of the season.
Yeah, we've been putting out our daily picks here and there, and I was just like, I figured they would. I thought Iowa State was in a good spot to win just because I think they're the better team. But after that injury, I was like, I just couldn't really go there just because you don't know how it's a big deal like to lose a key part of your team. So I still thought they would win, but I was like, I don't know, it makes you a little nervous. And the way it started, like you said, it's like, oh man, is this going to be one of those 40 minutes sweating it out type of deals? But luckily it didn't end up going that route for you. So pretty, and I think part of it too is like you just the history, like, oh, Kentucky, it's going to be a tough matchup, but it's just not. It's not the Kentucky that they've for a few years it's probably been that way, but still, the injury probably played more into that fact than thinking it was going to be a close game. If they're at full strength, I'm like cover that number big time, and of course they did, but it'd have been even bigger though without the injury. So I guess going forward, that's just you get the 2 wins, and that's a good weekend, but it's still kind of like that cloud, and a match will be important. But I do think with especially any SEC team at Tennessee, you have the offense where even if you have to go without him again, you could just you're gonna have to just get Monchilovich, get him loose from beyond the arc and just say let it rip, bro. He's not going to anyways. But I think you'd be like go out score them, and I think that'd probably be your best route for success, because it'd be tough without him, just because like you said, the size matchup.
Yeah, that's a problem, and I think. Obviously Rick Barnes has been doing this for a long time. He knows what to do, but they would definitely put an emphasis, I think, on doing that, trying to get it inside and just playing more of a slowdown type of game. The spot where Iowa State would also have to have an advantage, I think, is that kind of mid-range, bringing it up the floor. Can you annoy them enough, annoy the guards enough to get a few pokes away here and there to get some points the other direction? Because they did a phenomenal job of that today. If you can do, maybe half as good again next time, I think that still helps out a lot against a team like that. So it's going to be interesting. There'll be both their teams obviously are going to have when you get to the Sweet 16, you got a tough fight. It's going to be a good team, and it'll be a lot of fun to see if they can make it in one more round there into the coveted Elite Eight, and then of course one more step to the big spot everybody wants to be in at the end of the season. We got a 3-point lead for Florida with 2.5 left, one between Florida and Iowa, so it's coming right down to the wire to see who you're.
Even before the tournament, let alone before like the season or mid-season, you'd be like, "There's no."
So, gonna be a lot of fun to see how this wraps up. I will tell folks here too. Obviously, keep following us along on the socials at SGM Bets, at Cherokee CP. We've been putting out picks, kind of every day of the tournament as we go along. We'll continue to do that. Make sure you're following us along on all the other platforms on the podcast. Like, subscribe, get the notifications on whatever platform you may choose to use. Just search Every Day We're Covering and you'll find us. And then, of course, the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, get the notifications. We'll try to be putting out some videos for you there in that regard also here as we move down the stretch of the tournament here and get more and more exciting matchups to talk about. Really focused on the basketball here this weekend, which they rightfully should be. But now that we've got a couple of days here to wait, we're going to unleash the Parched Madness here for you from Every Day We're Covering as well. Been putting that together, so we'll unleash that for you. Look out on the socials. We've got specific beers that will be up against each other to try to win supremacy in our bracket here this year. So get in. You'll have a Google form that you'll go to and make your picks just like we did last year with the different types of drinks. This time it's going to be specific beers. So be on the lookout. That's going to be out at you tomorrow, and you'll be able to get all those picks made and crown a beer of the year here in our Parched Madness for 2026. So exciting to get that rolling here as well. This week, SJ, exciting stuff. Hopefully we keep watching some good hoops.
Yeah, it's at least one more game after this would be nice, but good. Could you imagine we're both talking Elite Eight or Final Four? That'd be a hell of a end of the year.
That would be a good one. We'd have a couple extra beverages lined up, I think, to finish off that show for sure.
I need a little AI help on that one.
Only time will tell. All right, that's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week here of Every Day We're Covering. We'll keep on dancing, and we'll see you next time for some more covers.